Thanks for joining us tonight. So this week, a student brought a stolen gun to St. Paul's Central High School. It is the fourth time this has happened in the district this year. This news brings the topic of school safety and the debate over school resource officers back to the surface. And that debate is front and center at our state capitol right now. Let's jog your memories for a moment. Last August, a new state law went into effect barring officers from using certain kinds of restraints when breaking up fights or bringing unruly students under their control. But some police officers spoke up and said that law is too vague, and it made them liable for excessive force lawsuits and criminal charges, they claim. So at least 40 law enforcement agencies across our state then pulled their school resources out of schools in a matter of weeks at the start of the 2023 school year. So that brings us to now, where lawmakers kicked off the session Monday with a proposal to fix this law, exempting officers from the restraint restrictions, adding training around mental health, and creating statewide standards so there's a uniform code here. And as this fixed bill gets its second hearing tonight, community groups and law enforcement alike still aren't saying this is perfect. John Croman, you take it from here.
Well, Janet, Democrats are in a tough spot here. They want to make it clear that using prone restraints on students is extreme and should never happen, especially in schools. But they also want to smooth things over with law enforcement and put this SRO controversy behind them before the elections.
Kids don't want police officers to hold them face down on the ground. Kids don't want school to be a place where they are traumatized. Kids don't want to get hurt.
Simon's a sixth grader who describes himself as autistic. He appeared at a news conference hosted by the Solutions Not Suspension Coalition.
Seems like you have to make a choice whether you are going to listen to cops or to kids.
The legislature's on a fast track to pass an updated SRO bill that would set up a model policy for how SROs operate in schools and would clarify that school resource officers can use reasonable force to prevent violence.
It legalizes specifically prone restraint by saying that this model policy must include a duration for how long prone restraint can happen. That's what this policy is.
The coalition believes students have been left out of the conversation, so they brought some to the Capitol.
I shouldn't walk into school and be like, am I going to see my friend being held on the ground? That shouldn't be a thing.
And as someone with an SRO in my own high school, this puts fear in my heart knowing that my peers could fall victim to this lethal and unnecessary restraint.
I was in middle school. I saw not necessarily SRO, but a liaison put a kid on the ground. For what? Can you give me a good reason why that is a good thing to do?
Republicans say the prone restraint issue has been blown out of proportion, considering the lack of data on how often it's used.
I heard over and over and over that if you want school resource officers in schools, that you must be for choking kids. At a very basic level, that's insulting. There are a number of educators on both sides of the aisle that choose to go into education because we want to love and serve kids.
I was coming to talk to a teacher!
The coalition points to an incident caught on video at St. Paul Central High back in 2016, back when St. Paul still had SRO officers.
He went into the wrong door, wasn't supposed to. SRO grabbed him up. He's screaming for help. He's placed down. I worked with this student afterwards, and again, today he's in his 20s and he's still traumatized by the experience.
This was a bill that was written and sponsored by people that do not want school resource officers in the school. When we look at the groups, the Solutions Not Suspension Coalitions, they don't want law enforcement, SROs in the school.
This isn't a discussion about SROs being in schools. That's a discussion for another day. Right now, we are discussing what are they allowed to do.
The bill passed its first committee yesterday with only Democrats voting in favor. Republicans still aren't happy, especially because the Post Board, the Police Officer Standard and Training, would be in charge of writing the final version of the SRO model policy. And that board's members are appointed by the governor. Jana?
I see. So the implication that if they're appointed by a Democratic governor, it's not going to be a fair shake?
That's pretty much what they're saying, yes.
Okay, and so where do you think this is going to go? Is this going to be the topic that we hear about day after day after day and that something gets done, or is this going to drag all the way to May?
I don't know. It's, 3 hearings this week, and Melissa Hortman, House Speaker, wants to put it on the floor next week for a floor vote, tracking along in the Senate too, so it might be over pretty soon, and that's why these groups are trying to get their voices heard now before it's too late.
All right, thanks so much, John.